All right, here we go.
Well, hey. Oh, look, my necklace is all messy. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy
Hello.
McKane.
Hi, everyone. We think your necklace looks great.
Oh yeah, it's not even
Welcome
out.
to
It's
another.
just it's just on the inside. This is my. I
I'll
think
bring it
I
up.
think you call it a toque. I think that's the best way. But it's supposed to have a name, and I haven't given it a name yet because I haven't been back to the ocean in a little bit. So
All right. Well, we got to get you back to the ocean. That's where you belong.
that's
That's where
where I belong.
a merman like you belongs. Welcome to another episode of Climate Microdose. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jeremy, and we're going to talk
Here we
about all the things that are connecting and facing our planet, but with a nice positive twist. And this is the first episode where we've actually gone live on YouTube, so I'm grateful for that. The one thing I get to say now, which we haven't never said before, is don't forget to like and subscribe.
I know we didn't want to get cheesy like that, but
I mean, I'm here for the cheese.
we would appreciate it. I'm excited to be on YouTube too. I'm happy to reach our community there. I feel like more people need to have lighthearted conversations about climate,
Yeah,
and that's what we're here for. Speaking of that, you just got back from a really nice trip to Singapore.
I did, and my microphone is not that excited as you just saw. Yeah, I did. Went to Singapore on behalf of Seakeepers. They had the Seakeepers and the OLC, which is Fabian Cousteau's ocean learning cooperation. I forget what the C stands for, but anyway, it was Fabian and I as the keynotes, which was really great, and it was awesome to kind of really see the focus for ocean health in Southeast Asia. So it was a basically like 2 day event, and they had experts that were coming up with really great ideas. There were a lot of kids from school, but then there was also a heavy because Singapore is the capital in Asia of the financial world, and so they had folks from Citi, UBS, HSBC. And they were all, they even brought studies of how valuable the ocean is to the economy, multiple economies around the planet. So this was really a great group of people. It was very mixed. It wasn't the typical group that you would normally see that was just only conservationists or just scientists talking to scientists. It was really a mix of a lot of different walks of life, which was super cool.
That's really cool. So tell us some of the takeaways. Like I personally love that I've been seeing so many more people from the private sector talk about climate.
Yeah.
And it's really great to have those kind of city folks in the room
City
because
folks.
city folks. I was Citibank, but also from the city. I'm
Yeah.
in the country right now, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just like doing my little
Oh, nice. I just see
country
white.
life.
It looks like heaven. So,
That's where it is. It's in the country. It's heaven up here.
right.
But no, I mean, just people who have a different way of looking at it than the traditional scientists and conservationists and people who have been working in climate for so long.
Yeah.
It's time that we open up the doors of inclusivity and let everybody from all different backgrounds talk about, how to make climate more accepted and accessible. So it's great to hear that you're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think it was interesting. Like there was multiple ideas that I remember, but one that stood out the most was this group that was literally just building these, I mean, really basic like tools to come together to generate hydrogen because they didn't want to put batteries. They wanted to have solar panels and then they didn't want to have to like they didn't want to have batteries in case something happened and those batteries dump into the ocean. So they were using things like they were making hydrogen and they were storing hydrogen in balloons and then they were using that to create power. And then they had this whole thing about how you could create this little floating pontoon that could then, generate enough electricity to power on lights where people could study. And I mean, it was really, really
Wow.
innovative. And so there was just,
As like a place to generate energy instead
yes.
of like a power grid.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting too. I ran across a study recently. I think it was released yesterday or so. They said, and I was thinking about this as kind of like this weird feedback loop, saying because of climate change and because warming temperatures of the ocean, we're starting to see really massive swells and bigger waves. In fact, it's increased significantly since 1980. And so the article was kind of hinting the fact that like, well, this is a great opportunity to use, ocean energy to generate electricity. And I started thinking about this, and I thought, well, yeah, it's true, because it's like, okay, well, maybe this is a way of like the planet kind of telling us, hey, like, stop it. And in the meantime, to transition, I'm going to give you some wave power that you can turn into electricity so that you're not burning fossil fuels. But then I thought about it afterwards, like, well, let's say we keep doing it, and then we reduce the fossil fuels, and then it doesn't heat it up anymore, and then we don't have the waves. It's like this weird kind of strange. I'm sure that would be many, many years into the future.
And it'll give us, the climate and the planet will give us a new solution to the
right.
problem.
Maybe that's what this is. That's why I don't know. I read that article thinking like that's really interesting.
I love, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
I know. You know what? I love that quote. And there's an old friend of mine who used to always use that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. And I think, our evolution is super interdependent with our planet.
Right.
I think a lot of people sometimes forget that. That's why biodiversity is so important. That's why getting outside and into nature is so important, And I think like nature does have a way of seeing what our issues are, in a really kind of interesting way.
Yeah.
And providing solutions as long as we have the fortitude to listen. But tell me more. So tell us more. How do you generate that energy from the wave and then turn it into powering someone's house?
Great question. So there's a bunch of people that are doing this right now, but one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is a company called CalWave. And CalWave utilizes these buoys that are then tethered onto the bottom. And CalWave, if you're watching this and I'm brutalizing your description, I'm sorry, but this is how I understand it. But essentially there's a buoy that sits at the surface of the ocean, and then it's tethered by basically like what amounts to be is like a piston in an engine, right? And so as this thing kind of moves up and down, it's turning a turbine, right? And so it's able to utilize that kinetic energy of the ocean to generate electricity, which I think is great because it's like we don't have to worry about turbines. You can tell me that I'm like in Texas here. Turbines, we don't have to use turbines to generate some electricity. But because you always hear these things, just like, oh, well, it's really bad for the environment. The blades, they only last for 10 years. Then you have to throw them in the landfill, and oh, it's killing the birds and the bats and whatever, right? It's like, here's a situation where you're literally just floating something on the ocean to capture that kinetic energy. It's kind of cool, I think.
That's extremely cool. It's the same kind of technology as wind turbines.
Turbines. Yeah.
I'm going to be in Texas next week in Houston.
I don't know why I just turned into Mater from
I'm
Cars.
excited. I'm going to become my alter ego, Bandana. Bandana. That's me in Texas. Yeah. So get ready.
Like coming. What? Okay. So what, just so I know, what part of Texas are you going to?
Houston.
Okay. Well, Houston is the... Oh, I won't say anything bad about Houston. They're probably watching.
My wonderful partner, he's from there.
Oh, yes. So it's a wonderful place.
We're going to Texas to have Thanksgiving with the family down there. And I'm excited to have an American cultural experience. Pivoting to Thanksgiving really quick as we do. It's going to be really great. As an immigrant, I'm kind of the one who tells my family, like, okay, we need a turka, we need like these kind of things. And my family is like, okay, we'll go get it. But it's going to be my first time like going to the experience and like having them put it all down and see what their traditions are like.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Texas before?
I've been to Austin only.
You've been to Austin. Okay. All right. Well, it'll be a very different experience. The food in Houston is actually amazing.
I keep hearing that. Keep hearing that. I'm excited. I'm going to bring my big
And they have
fan.
a thriving arts scene. So don't miss that while you're there.
So I'm going to Houston, but I have been thinking about some tips for a sustainable Thanksgiving because it can be a very wasteful holiday.
Okay, so clue me in on this. What are some strategies?
The first thing is to just think about reusables.
Okay.
Not having the single-use plastic, I think, is the biggest thing. And obviously, it's much easier to just like throw it all out. But if being sustainable is one of your core values, I think thinking about renewables is really important. And there's a really beautiful way to make that ritualistic and making, heirlooms for your family and things like that. So when you're talking about setting a table or even doing like snacks, think about like real glass, real cutlery, real plates. things
Right.
like that, because it can get really easy to make a lot of waste there really quick.
So do you find that, that's one thing that I don't like. It drives me nuts. Do you find people use paper plates a lot?
I see it. I do see
Yeah.
it.
Why
Not in my house.
why do we do that?
I'm like here, like,
I
with a
know.
knife to your throat.
I mean, I guess one side of it is it is a pain in the butt to have to wash all those dishes, right?
I know,
But
I
that's
know.
what you have children for.
100%. You as the homemaker, if that's a word that we're still using, the
Right.
host, you don't have to be in charge of everything, soup to nuts. Like, you
Yeah.
can delegate who's going to wash. You can make the kids have a
I do
fun
that
little
every
assembly
night
line.
with my children.
You can have them have a little assembly line, like, you do this, you dry, at the end. Like, make it fun. Think about creative ways to clean. I know that cleaning is really annoying, but what's more annoying is a dying planet.
Yeah. That's
I hate, I hate
that's
to say it.
way to throw in the guilt trip.
I hate to
Sure,
say it.
yeah.
I hate to say it, but it is kind of true. And just doing your small little part, it matters.
Yeah.
And taking that renewable through line into decorations, I think is another one. A lot of us will buy, like, plastic turkeys and things like that, because we want to make a vibe. We want to make the house cute. I love that. If anybody out there knows me, I am a vibe queen.
I mean, what's not to love about a plastic turkey?
Nature provides so many beautiful options. Like, you can go find some leaves and forage and spend some time outside, get some chestnuts and an apricorn. What's it called? A pine cone.
Papercorn.
Apricorn.
Right.
Yeah. That, you can make so many fun little things that are renewable, biodegradable, paper, twine, reusing some things that you already have around the house. Like, again, make it like a fun craft project.
Sure.
Not trying to put more on your plate. And being Thanksgiving.
Oh, I see what you did there.
But I do think, adding a little bit of creativity and the focus on renewables is really important.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, there's a lot. I mean, it's just one of those kinds of things where I think you generally just say, hey, look, we're all here. We just want to spend a lot of time together. We don't necessarily want to be cleaning up after each other. But again, those are some good tips. I think that's great.
So I think so. And I hope that, nobody's uncle ruins it all with a politic conversation, and that's something totally different. Keeping it sustainable.
You're the one that started. You're just like, why are we not having paper plates? And you're like, because we're on a dying planet.
Yep, that's me. Invite me to your Thanksgiving dinner. No, just because it's better for the planet and it's better for you. You're not eating microplastics. Like, it's
100%.
just a better practice to start.
I mean, at this point, I kind of have an appetite for microplastics.
You were so used to eating them.
Yeah, like, something's missing. What is that? Oh, we don't have enough microplastics in the sauce.
I saw a meme. It was like, there's a little Barbie in all of us, after the whole Barbie thing. And it was like, in parentheses, it's the microplastic.
That is hilarious. Yeah, that's funny.
So those are some of my Thanksgiving tips.
Okay.
Let me know if you have a specific problem. I'm sure we can solve it. Travel, of course, is difficult. And I just told everybody I'm going to be traveling from New York City to Houston. So that is a plane that I'm going to take.
Oh, you're not taking the chuck wagon this time.
I would love a chuck wagon. We even looked into driving. It just takes too long.
I mean,
It's
the
just
methane emissions though from those horses, so bad.
So true, so true. And getting a wagon across the interstate these days is a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, with any luck, I'll probably fall off the wagon.
Knowing you. Tell us more. So were you able to attend the Earthshot ceremony in Newport?
That's a sore point.
Oh no.
So my company OCN.ai is an Earthshot. We were an Earthshot nominee. We did make the finalists, which is great. And you know what? The Earthshot group team was so unbelievably sweet. Like, a lot of times you sign up for these kinds of things, these competitions, and like, you don't know. You're like, did we do it right? Did we do it wrong? It's just a mystery. So Earthshot doesn't operate like that at all. They're incredibly organized. And while they don't go into great detail to say why you weren't selected as a finalist, they do give you some hints. They say, well, there's a couple things that we think that you could work on. One of them is this, and it was just, they went down kind of this list of things, and they were like, hey, just so you know, you're part of the Earthshot family, so we want to continue to work with you to help you, because we want you to do it again next year. So I think I was just really stoked to be part of Earthshot on that level. And so I just, because I was in Singapore, I happened to be there.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine told me, he said, look, I'm not going to go to the event because I didn't actually plan on going to Earthshot. I just happened to be there, right? So I might as well, win in Singapore, do as the Singaporeans is what I always say. So I get there and he said, yeah, you can just use my spot. And I was like, cool. So he gives me his ticket, and then I tell the people like, hey, yeah, this is the situation. It was fine. And then they go to scan the ticket, and it was like, beep, this was scanned 15 minutes ago. And I was like,
oh no.
Oh. So I don't know what happened, but I was like, well, is there any way that I could just come hang out for a little bit? I can stand in a corner. It's like, you can put Jeremy in a corner. Like, it's okay. And they were just like, we can't, because it's just super packed. But it was all right. I think it was, I think my time in Singapore was spent really well. And what I did, since I was already in a tuxedo, and I was, how rare I don't know, I would say maybe there's been a couple times this year I've been in a tuxedo. But
I don't know. I've seen you in a tuxedo more than I've seen.
Yeah,
like,
maybe
my dad.
maybe that's true. Maybe that something's changing. But I was like, I'm not gonna wear a tuxedo.
I mean,
and just go home. No. So I went to the Raffles Hotel. And I just, I was like, look, if I look like James Bond, I might as well play the part, And so I went to the Raffles Hotel, met up with some lovely Kiwis, and we talked about airplanes because they were pilots. So, and then I made my way back and met up with some friends. But so it was a nice night. But I think what was so great about Earthshot is it's interesting. I mean, I don't want to say that I had the idea, but I've always wanted something like this to happen, right? When we were doing Ultramarine, well, when we started Ultramarine when Susie and I started Ultramarine back in 2019, I said, hey, what would be so cool is we had like a Grammys, but for the ocean, right? And I'm glad that somebody else took this by the horn, somebody like Prince William, because granted, Prince William is going to do way more than what I could possibly do.
He has a big platform for sure.
So cool, right? And so so to me, it just warms my heart to know that there's like a Oscars, Grammy level thing for the planet, and that's really what Earthshot is. And it's like, I think when you're a filmmaker and you're trying to tell a story, you're always like, why now? Why you? And we even asked that question in our last episode to the filmmaker that was on with us, and I think that same question can be applied to the things that we're trying to do to help innovate for the planet. Why do we need to do this now? And why am I the individual, or why is my team, or why is your team the team to make that impact? And I think giving a stage for the rest of the world to see that there's some really great human beings, and sometimes we just all need a little bit of a push. And sometimes the push is just saying that, hey, we appreciate what you're doing. And I feel like that's really what Earthshot is.
100%. And they give the capital to kind of put their money where their mouth is in a way, right? So such a big problem with climate is that the resources aren't being allocated where they need to be. And I think something that Earthshot does really well is like scour all of these different global climate companies, from like the smallest, teeniest one to one that's funded by, a huge venture capitalist firm, and kind of assess who's doing the best work and how can we raise you up. And sometimes it's like that awareness and that platform that can be really important. And that, makes me think of the Time 100 that was recently released. That's all the top 100 innovators in climate.
Right.
And I think putting the Time 100 in the kind of frame of climate is so cool, because it shows you just how many amazing people there are working in the field. And B, it makes everybody kind of privy to the work that's being done and the light that needs to be shown for climate to become like the number one thing. It needs to be the Oscars. It needs to be the Time 100. 100%. It needs to be up there. And we're very fortunate that you and I have the network, and just the people out there in the world, the smartest minds are working on solving it. So hopefully we'll get to a better place soon because, I got to tell you, looking out there's a lot of pessimism with the news and what's going on. And it's just been really tough. And I went to an event this week with Founders Pledge.
Okay.
Shout out to the Founders Pledge community. For those of you that don't know Founders Pledge, it's a
I don't know Founders Pledge.
I'll tell you about it. And I'd be happy to connect you with them. And anybody else, let me know. It's a philanthropic organization where you pledge to donate a portion of your upon exit of your startup to a philanthropic organization of your choice. And if you don't have one in mind, they'll help you direct your funds specifically based on your values. They have a really, really brilliant research team. And they're just really, really smart people. David, the founder, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I've known him from 2015, and just seeing the organization really catapult, especially during the pandemic and things like that. Yeah. It's great. And something that's so cool about it is you don't have to have already had your illustrious exit to be a part of it. There are folks in the organization, of course, who have gone through their exit and their pledge has gone through. But there's also people who are just working on building their company. There's folks who are, have equity in a company and are working to make the world a better place, and who want to say, like, I'm doing this work not just to make money and become personally wealthy, but once I exit, once this company, succeeds, we all succeed because I'm donating, X amount of money to save the planet.
Yeah. That's really cool. I love this idea. I mean, I think that's exactly something that we
like really high level founders in making the pledge, pretty much, and different organizations that are a part of it. So it's super cool. And they had a New York kind of cohort joining and just asking questions about what are they doing, how their research is going, what's happening with like cancer, malaria, a lot of the things that we're invested in solving as a people. Right. And I, of course, pessimist Anna, raised the question. I was like, there's so much bad stuff going on in the world. How do you guys talk to people who want to do good? How do you talk about, this conversation when it seems like we should just all pack up and go home? Right. They were like, the news makes it seem like it's a lot worse than it is. And the conversations that are catapulted from watching the news makes it all worse. But if you actually look at the stats, and they're like, all of our research is open source, so you can go look at it. Malaria numbers are going down, like cancer research is going up, poverty is going down, hunger is going down. All of these things that contribute to the way that, humanity is feeling. We're on a rise as a people. Yep. There's just also happens to be a lot of really tough things in the world, but keeping that as a balance, I think, is a really important theme. And as we're wrapping up 2023, I've been really reflecting on this past year and what's been going on and kind of themes that have been emerging. And the one that keeps coming up over and over again is balance. And it comes into climate as well. Like I said, I'm going to fly to see some family, but I'm also going to bring some of my sustainability values there with me. You can't just be one way. There is no light without a dark. Like, you have to find that.
Well, and I think the other thing too we got to remember is, like, this is a period of time where we are in dire need of a transition technology. I mean, it's like, we're burning fossil fuels when we're in the airplane, but I'll have to go back and find it, but there was a study that was done at one point of, like, cars versus airplanes, and the fact that we're technically carpooling in an airplane was much better than we were in a private jet versus using. Actually, the other thing was our lawnmowers, because our lawnmowers don't have the same type of catalytic converters that you would have on a car to make them more emissions friendly. Like, I don't remember how many, but it was like there was a number of cars on the highway for one lawnmower, and so it was like. There's like all these little silly things that you don't really think about, because it's like, well, this is just what I normally do. I've got to go cut the grass, or I got to go, drive my car someplace.
Who needs to make like the Tesla of lawnmowers? Let's go.
They do. I have actually seen this at Home Depot. They have electric lawnmowers, but even better than electric lawnmowers, I've noticed that they actually have robotic, like, autonomous lawnmowers, which is, I think, what we all need.
That's scary.
I know, right? Yeah, go out and play, young little Johnny. Oh, he came back with only one leg. What happened? Yeah.
gonna mow me while I'm sleeping.
Right. But I mean, I love that kind of idea. It's like the iRobot, but for the lawn. I mean, coming as a kid who had to mow
Like a
lawns,
Roomba.
I'm like, I hated it as a kid, you know. But then there begs the question, like, well, what do I do now, you know? Anyway, I digress. This is what we do here at Climate
Well,
Microdose.
I do think that technology can solve a lot of these problems, but we have to keep the human element in. You know, like
Totally.
if you weren't mowing the lawn, maybe you would have been up to no good. Maybe you would have been playing video games, which is fine. Maybe you would have
Yeah,
been just
totally
doing
fine.
something else. Then spending time outside, you know, helping your family. So there's again, like there's always balance, and it's just coming back to like what's important to us, what
Yeah.
needs to get done, and what resources do we have to do it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. But I think I only mention this because I don't want people to beat themselves up too bad if they're getting on an airplane. You're gonna go see your family. Like, you know, look,
It's okay.
there are people working on this, right? So just, you know, and you know what's interesting too is I remember talking to this guy at Tesla ages ago. I was like, you know, the batteries are so bad, and like, you know, he says, yeah, but if people aren't investing in buying electric cars, then there's no impetus to innovate and create new battery technology. And I thought that was a really good point. And I think that applies to anything that we do, right? It's like, you know, and I think, you know, I think companies like JetBlue and others are trying to do real innovative things, like they're using waste to turn it into fuel. So that's one transition thing that can be done. But I think when we start looking at really cool technologies like graphene batteries that are much, you know, lightweight, and they don't have the volatility like lithium ion and lithium polymer batteries do, then now we open the door up for electric flight, you know, which is super cool. And
Electric flight. I'm so excited. I mean,
yeah,
it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetime, but I do think it's going
I
to
think
happen.
it will.
You do?
I do. I mean, like the Chinese are already doing it. There's a company called Ehang. I think it's Ehang. I think that's how you say it. I'm probably saying it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's called Ehang. But it's like a gigantic drone that you put your body in. You say, I want to go to work, and for like you have 15 minutes of flight time. The thing flies and lands, and yeah, it's super space age. But I mean, how cool would it be to be able to just walk into your car and then it flies, takes you where you got to go. You don't have to pilot it. And maybe you and I just sit there and do an episode of Climate Microdose while we're flying to wherever we're going. You know, that's so cool.
Well, that makes me feel better about being a New Yorker who can barely drive. And at this point in my life, don't really see that skill emerging.
Yeah, that's a very Texas, New York weird thing, right? Like you don't know how to drive, you don't drive. Like that's almost like sacrilege over here. Like if it, you know,
No,
because everyone drives, everyone has a car.
I live with a Texan every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about it. And it's funny because we talk about being like each other's yin yang. Like there's a lot of things that I grew up with, you know,
Right.
that never crossed his Texas periphery. And, you know, the same with me. And, you
Yep.
know, that's why I want him to drive me around.
There you go. There you go. Well, my wife is also from Brooklyn, so but you know she now drives, and not because I let her. She so don't get the wrong impression here. she does what she wants to.
But good.
Yes.
Women's autonomy is very important, and we love that on the
Yes.
dose.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
But, you know, I think just wrapping up the episode, it's really great to think about everything that's happening in terms of the light that's being shed on climate, whether it's in places like Singapore, which, as you said, is like a business hub of the world. So for them to be pouring so much energy and resources to climate, it's really important. Things like the Time 100, really seeing the tide shifting
Yeah.
towards it becoming like the mainstream thing to think about.
For sure.
And how can we contribute? And also, how can we bring balance to that so we're not feeling guilty about every single thing that we do, but we make smart choices. Like if I have the choice to use, you know, cutlery versus plastic cutlery, let me make the decision that's aligned with my values, you know,
Yeah.
but also you have to use plastic cutlery, like not beating yourself up about it, and just understanding that you'll always have a choice and you always can make the right decision for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think being aware and I mean, there's actually when I was in Singapore, it's something I shared in my talk was something that I call the resolution paradox, right? Because you cannot resolve a problem if you refuse to measure or don't measure something so that you can come to some sort of resolution. And so we find ourselves in this resolution paradox because it's like, well, we just don't know, and maybe we make decisions, and then we're upset that they didn't actually get to that resolution, but we never did the measurement to begin with, and I mean, that's one of the things that we try to do with our foundation. We realize that ocean data is something that's super important to really understand what the problems are, and so we have a nonprofit foundation that the purpose of it is to democratize ocean data and put tools in the people's hands that otherwise couldn't afford it. And my hope is that like when we look at whether it's flying an airplane or being in the ocean or anything like that, you at least collect enough data to come back and say, well, you know what, maybe we should change our habits to do these things. And then I think ultimately you start to see some real results.
100%. Like it gives you the roadmap too. You can't solve a problem unless you diagnose it first.
100%.
And sometimes it's like I don't want to look at my bank account. I don't want to see how much money I spent this weekend. Like I'm scared of.
Don't ever do that. That's the worst thing to do. Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like just not looking at it.
Yeah.
But then when you finally look at it and you can see and do the math, then you have so much more agency over, okay, maybe I need to curb my spending here, or actually wasn't as bad as I thought, or let me budget better. You know what I mean? Like actually start to diagnose some of the problem instead of ignoring it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a very American thing, is to just brush it under the rug
and
hope
for sure.
it solves itself.
For sure. But
So,
none of our viewers do that. All two of our viewers, you guys don't do that.
It's never as bad as you think.
Yeah.
Once you face it, it's never as bad as you think. But having the capacity to take a look at it, I think it's important, even though it can be a little scary.
Agreed.
But that's okay. We're here to do the hard thing. We're here to evolve, and we have our beautiful planet here to help us.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing episode. It's always great to connect and hang with you, Anna. And we're going to do another one of these next week, also live. With and we've got a guest. We've got a special guest.
We have a special guest, so stay tuned.
Oh, we're not going to say who she is. Okay, cool. I didn't know if we were going to do that or not. Okay, we're not going to say it's a mystery. Yes, yeah. But I will say this. You guys don't want to miss it. She's an amazing human being. She's doing phenomenal work in the space. And every time I talk to her, I don't know about you, Anna, I always learn something new.
Yeah, she's great, and we're excited to finally have her on. We've been trying to schedule for a while, so it's going to be great.
Cool. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this edition of Climate Microdose. We'll see you next week.
Talk soon.